Supernatural Season 14, Episode 12, Profit and Loss. This episode, honestly, was it's definitely one of my favorite episodes this season. It is the first episode, and honestly, I don't know how long to actually get an emotional reaction out of me. Like the scene when Sam punched Dean and he was like, I believe in us, and he hugged him and he was like, why don't you believe in us too? That was an insanely great scene. Like, I love that scene. And even the way they ended the episode, because they always end it with a black background with white text, and they did it in reverse this time, where it was a white background with black text. So, I think I would assume that signifies a lot of the stuff that happened in this episode, where it's kind of a darker element as the forefront of the episode, which is of course Dean sacrificing himself, but the background of that is white because everything else around him is trying to kind of keep the faith alive. Like you have, of course, Cass, where it's like, he technically wasn't supposed to know about the deal, which I thought was a really funny scene where he's like, oh, so that means you gave up, on your plan and stuff. So I thought that was a really funny scene. But of course, you have Cass, you have Sam naturally, and Mary, and eventually when they end up telling Jack as well. So you have all these characters, our main cast that are trying to tell him like, there's something we can do. Like, we have to find another way because, we don't want you to sacrifice yourself. And they show the dream. Like, Dean already had a dream of him being trapped, trapped in the, basically in a coffin in the middle of the ocean and just stuck there alive forever. Like, he doesn't need food. He doesn't need sleep. He's just stuck with nothing. And, he literally, like, there were, like, claw marks on the hotel room, or motel room, because they don't get that fancy. But it was just really good. Like, I loved the episode. And there were like 100 million things constantly being like, sometimes you got to give up the fight and sometimes you got to sacrifice for the greater good and stuff like that. Like, the whole episode was them dealing with that and random stuff coming up. Like, they had the stuff with the twins, and that was like the first thing. And it was like, me losing my brother. Like, that's like losing a part of me. And so that was their big thing. And then, of course, they get to kind of the main issue of this episode that they're dealing with as far as, the case they come upon. And it's this guy who's meant to be the next prophet, but instead he's like caught in between, and he's like really messed up because Donatello is caught in between and he's really messed up. So he's basically living on machines. And so he's technically on his way out in a sense. And that somewhat prematurely triggers the next prophet. So that dude goes crazy and he starts killing a bunch of people. And then he ends up, killing himself at the end, or like, I guess technically it was like the middle of the episode. And I was like, man, this is really insane. Like, this is nuts what they're doing with this. And I love the way it was handled. I thought it was really well done. And then, they figured that out. So it's like they have to go see Donatello. And once again, it kind of goes through that process of Cass talking to Dean, Sam talking to Dean, them trying to figure out how do we convince Dean not to do this, when in Dean's case, it's not like it's ever been. It's legitimately like there are books, like he knows what the books are for. And there's literally only one that doesn't end with everyone else on Earth either being enslaved or killed or being put into this insane war because of Michael. And that's him just sacrificing himself. So I thought it was really well done. I like the way they handled that. It was good to see that Donatello didn't have to get killed off. I always just like characters being allowed to live. So that was nice to see him come back. He doesn't have his soul, so I'm curious how they're going to kind of go about that, throughout the rest of the series, for, as long as the character's there. With him being a prophet that's soulless, if that has any impact on anything, or if it's just like what we saw with Sam, where it's just like he's kind of doing his mission, he's a bit uncaring, and he just does what he needs to do to get things done. So I'm looking forward to that. But it was such a good episode. Like, that was really the main part. But then even Nick's stuff in this episode was also really freaking insane. It was not at all what I expected. It really surprised me, and I was kind of blown away at the end, where he does end up going home again and his wife is there, and I was like, I would not have expected that to happen, where his wife shows up. And it was funny because, of course, he says Lucifer, which makes a ton of sense at the time. But it's like, no, like, it's actually me. And so they have this really great conversation. Once again, it was an emotional moment. I didn't get, like, the same reaction as I did with Sam and Dean. But I love the scene. Excuse me. And Lucifer talking with his wife, where she's like, I'm trapped here, not just because of revenge, but because of you. And it was because you accepted Lucifer at this time. And it was like, okay, they don't go too far into it, but at the time he was like insanely broken, and that's why it ended up happening. And Lucifer did use, if I'm not mistaken, he did use his wife's image in order to kind of trick Nick. So I was like, okay, they don't go too far into that, but it's like, all right, that's been said and done. He's kind of past that at this point. Lucifer isn't there, and he's still going around headbutting cops and kicking the crap out of them, which I thought was a crazy scene. I was like, he kicked the crap out of that cop. Like, his leg wasn't that bum, because he was kicking him with the leg he was shot in. And I was like, well, it's not that bad. He's kicking him really hard. So he goes home, and it was just such a great scene to see her come back. And all she says is, like, all you have to do is just kind of cast him off. Like, just say that you kind of renounce Lucifer, and that's it. And I'm free. Like, I can literally go to heaven. I can move on and have peace for all eternity. Your wife, all you have to do is just not care about Lucifer. And he just cries in front of her, and it's just like, I can't. And it was just like, that's messed up. Like, it was such a crazy scene to watch that happen, where after all this time, like, if that happened in the very beginning, I think he could have done that. And it's just too late now, because he's already gone through that process of realizing he liked some of those dark elements. We saw him, when he was still had some of the residual stuff from Lucifer, when Cass like kind of pissed him off, and he snapped at him, and it was just like, obviously there's some stuff there. Like, the dude is messed up now. He's not the man that he would have been had Lucifer not possessed him before. So it was just a very great episode, pretty much all around. Like, 100%, I love this episode. But the emotional elements were fantastic. Like, I like the way they did. Like, it was super obvious, like, a lot of the stuff that was happening. Like, oh, they're twins, and so they talk about the brother stuff. They talk about, like I said, the sacrifice of Donatello, and sometimes you kind of just have to, sometimes things just have to end, and you got to sacrifice so that other people don't suffer as well, because the other prophets would have come out, really crazy, and then they would have had to deal with them as well. So it's like, sometimes you have to have that one big sacrifice to save, the greater good, that sort of thing. But really great episode. Absolutely loved it. I'm very curious what in the world the story is going to be for this next episode, where it's supposed to be like the timelines and all this stuff. Because I just want to know, how does that even start happening? Like, who did what to sort of start switching up timelines and universes and stuff like that. So Sam is internet famous, which I can't wait to see, because they didn't actually show it in the promo, but I was like, I want to see why he's internet famous, because I feel like that's going to be funny. I love the fact that they use that really old picture of Dean with the wanted poster where he's like that. I always thought that was a funny picture, so I was glad to see that come back. But I'm looking forward to the next episode. But this one, I think, is, at this point, is probably like my number one, just because of that one scene with Sam and Dean where it got that reaction out of me. Because the show normally has some crazy reactions, characters die, whether it's permanent or not. Of course, the last finale was insane. But this, I kind of got, like, I was like, yeah, like, that got me like a little teary-eyed. I was like, man, that doesn't really happen for me when it comes to Supernatural. Like, there are like very few scenes where they really have that, and it's been a super long time, I'd say, since we've truly had them have an emotional scene where they legitimately cry. Like, it's been a minute. Like, they've had some emotional stuff, without a doubt. There's been some emotional stuff in this season, and they do their normal emotional stuff where they're mad and then they hug. But this was like, Sam was just pissed. Like, he was at that level where it's like there was nothing else that he could truly think to do, and he literally just punches his brother in the face, and then he hugs him, and he's like crying, and it's like, why don't you believe in us too? And that was just like an insanely great scene. So I without a doubt, it's like one of the best endings they've had in quite a while. But all in all, looking forward to the next episode, of course. Would love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. With everything that's going on, I mean, the Nick thing, that's just kind of up in the air. Every episode, I'm just like, what are your predictions on that? So I still want to know where in the world you think that's headed, or what they're going to be doing to somehow get Lucifer back in there. But definitely with the emotional element of what's going on with Sam and Dean, as well as Cass, and we'll see what happens with Jack. I feel like that should be fairly good as well, because his stuff was good when he was supposed to be dying. That was also a really good episode for some of the emotional elements and just what he wanted, and the things they referenced, like with Dean and stuff like that, where it's like, that's like their son. So that was a good one too. But with everything they're doing as far as the emotional element of this episode, we'll love to know how it made you guys feel. And once again, just any predictions you guys have for the stuff with Nick and Lucifer, I would love to hear those as well, because it's just been getting real crazy. And I'm like, I'm loving every second of it. At this point, it doesn't matter that he randomly survived and they don't really have an official answer. It's been like, you know what? Everything's been so freaking good. That's just like a tiny little thing. Who cares? Because it's led to some fantastic stuff with his character just going insane. And in this episode, I would say, once again, he probably had his best moment so far, as just Nick, where he literally left his wife there to just suffer as a ghost forever in their house. And it was like, that's just dark. Like, it was just so messed up. It was one of the scenes where you just like, that was just good. It was good to see, but it was just like, man, that's so harsh. Like, the whole thing was supposed to be him getting revenge for his family. And then when it comes to literally giving her peace, he just wouldn't do it. And he had the chance, and it was just like, I can't. And he just leaves her there, and it's like, wow. And that was, once again, a powerful scene. But like I said, definitely want to know your predictions on that, what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.